Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at my tournament report for CanCon 2026, our Australians National down in Canberra. So, CanCon 2026, it's a 5-round event. The missions were provisioning, area of interest, crossing lines, corporate appropriation, and hard lock. If you want to see a deeper dive into those missions, check out my previous video in getting prepared for CanCon. Now, there were no additional rules for this tournament. However, there was a focus on radial deployments for the first 2 missions, where we're really looking at giving those a red-hot go, and overall it was really fun. The faction we picked was Varuna, and again, if you want to see more behind this decision, check out the previous video. But essentially, we had experience from a previous event, and that was Mega. You can watch my video on that as well. We had pretty heavy reps on it, and they were decently well-suited to the lineup. I didn't feel like they were necessarily holding me back from completing any of the missions. I don't feel like they necessarily gave me a push into the missions like some factions would, but overall, I could take them and not feel disadvantaged. So, List 1 was for provisioning area of interest, corporate appropriation, and hard lock. Here we had the Kamau multi-sniper in a pure duo with the machinist, and they were supporting the Squallow and Pathfinder dronebot duo in Group 2. We then had the Zulu Cobra killer hacker, only real killer hacker in the faction with a pitcher to try and take out any enemy hackers, a Fusilier hacker just to be there to be annoying to the opponent and take up some resources if they did feel the need to scalpel him out with a Trinity. We had a Kamau MSV1 HRL in a duo with 2 Knights of Montesa FTO and a Pathfinder drone bot. A lot of kit going on in that link, a lot of capability for a link that can really do basically whatever it wants. It can do ARO, it can push, it can, Pathfinder away. Anything it wants to do, it can handle it. We've got a Helot in each group just to be there as a nice little defensive backbone. We've got our 2 Fusiliers to act as our lieutenant and decoy, and then just a mule bot mostly there to refill our Knights of Montesa after they've spent their blitzen. So this list is really focused on that core, getting boosted by the attacker of the Pathfinder, and it can do quite a bit between offense, defense, classifieds, etc. Group 2 as well, having that Pathfinder drone bot in there, means that if the Squallow's got all the heads down and there's no grenades it wants to fling, the Pathfinder is actually reasonably quick at grabbing objectives, especially where it can be propelled by the Squallow's tack aware as well. There's a good synergy between groups, where the Squallow group clears the way, gets rid of problematic elements, even something like a midfield repeater, the Squallow can just send a grenade to, where Group 1 then can really shine and make the most of what it's got. But there's no midfield in the list, and these are missions that would really like some midfield, and it's very dangerous not to retreat after a push, so a lot of the time, even though we do have nice speed with this linked attack aware, the Squallow and even that core do want to come back home once they've done something. Now, List 2 is a little bit different from our last video, made some changes on the drive up, essentially to fit in a Knight of Montesa motorized. This list was really aimed for crossing lines primarily, but then I felt it could also flex into corporate appropriation. So we've got a Kamau heavy machine gun in a link with the 2 Knights and the Pathfinder, just like in the first list. Then we've got Patsy linked with 2 Red Fury Helots. Each one of those guys is looking to spit 5 dice at someone in reactive. We've got a Zulu Cobra Lieutenant with Combi Rifle and Jammer. This is a really nice lieutenant just to stop them fully pushing in on crossing lines or being able to chase your prototype in corporate appropriation. We've got a Peacemaker Mine Layer, just part of a good defensive mix in corporate appropriation, where you can't just put AROs up on the enemy's beacon because they can disco ball it, so you want to ideally have a heavy ARO, a repeater, and a mine, if you can do it. That's the best setup, because usually it's hard to find pieces that can overlap and bypass all of those elements. Usually something like Shona under a disco ball, you can't really do anything to stop that, but anything else, the Peacemaker becomes a vital part of that defensive mix. Then we've got a Kamau MSV2 and a link with Quinn with disco balls. I think if you're not taking a tag, you really do need to bring the disco baller in Varuna, where MSV and MIM AROs can give you a lot of trouble. We've got our single Fusilier Hacker, 2 Mule Bots, and then that motorized Knight. So we're heavily defending the midline with the Helots. We've got a lot of pieces that can push and capture space. And we've got very flexible methods of engagement and interaction with our opponent, but we are light on the big guns. So without further ado, let's get into the tournament. So round 1 was provisioning against Hayden, and I've got an approximate recreation of his list, focused on the Zeta. Group 1, we've got the Cyber Coast, an unlinked Psycop Killer Hacker, which I thought was quite a nice touch. You get a lot of, you get to compress that Killer Hacker and that Disco Bowler into the one unit. A lot of the times, when taking a Psycop, you can feel pressured to find a way to link it with another unit or another Psycop, but I really did just like it here as a BTS-6 Killer Hacker with Disco Bowler. Thought it was a nice touch. Lambda Engineer and Epsilon HMG, a Yud bot to go with that Lambda, 2 Moonrakers who would provide the majority of the forward defense, a Road bot and Oko link, a Varangian in each group, of course the big bad Zeta Lieutenant, Ment, Fuzzbot, Kita, and Kappa Hacker. So this, as with most O12 lists, it's a very strong spread of toolbox unit, and it can reconstitute quite well with the Lambda backing up the Moonrakers, the Oko, the Roadbot, and the Zeta. So you've got quite a lot of longevity there. You've got very flexible vision control. You can either take advantage of the smoke, take advantage of that white noise, or if you're just not interested, if your opponent's got some layered visor, non-visor arrows, you do have the Psycop there just to totally block it off. So that's a really nice spread in terms of vision control. There's not much that can stop you when you bring that kit with you. And it's got very, very clear order pools. No one's off the table, no one's irregular, it's just letting you do what you want to do. So here we are for round 1. This is the table we were playing on. You can see the 3 boxes along the center line for provisioning, where we were trying to go. I win the LT roll and choose to go first, and my classified as HVT follow-up. So, the turn's pretty simple for me. There's 2 little Moonrakers, one sitting there, with their 2 mines sort of set behind the buildings they're on. The first move is to fling out the Pathfinder drone bot I think we do this one first. We fling the Pathfinder drone bot in line of sight of the Moonraker, and we give him the option of whether he wants to shoot or just, trust the sensor. He goes to shoot the bot. My bot puts some flash pulses back. Nothing really happens, but it then means the sniper can activate and just shoot that Moonraker off the table, freeing up myself to go on a run here. After that's done, we do the same maneuver with this Pathfinder bot as well, and we get a bit lucky. He reveals, shoots out his adhesive launcher, and again, nothing decisive happens, so the Squallow is able to swing, take on the Moonraker. The sensor bot can then go out, discover shoot, or discover deactivate the mine that's here, and that group essentially ends up just running back home after collecting a box. Now, my big link team over here ends up going out. The 2 knights can both press this button and start lurching this way. The sensor bot picks up this button and is able just to come all the way back around. And the end point of this turn is that we've got our Kamau heavy rocket launcher chilling up here. We've got our sensor bots nicely in the zone, and both of our knights nicely in the zone. And they've got 3 supply boxes, and then my little Pathfinder over here has a supply box as well. So, very effective turn 1, and a turn 1 I'm very happy with. Yes, the positioning isn't great within my special zone, and that's my opponent's zone there as well. But being able to get all 4 boxes, that's, the perfect turn that you want, so I can't complain too much there. So it goes over to my opponent's turn, and he's able to safely impetuous these Varangians forward. This Varangian's able to make it up to here, and this Varangian's able to make it to behind this building. And they both throw smoke. Now, this Varangian chucks smoke just in this space here, in this corridor, which my Kamau MSV2 sniper is watching. And this Varangian... Oh no, I think this Varangian just moves up. Now, I think this was a key mistake from my opponent, as it meant that my Kamau MSV2 really had quite a fun time looking down this lane. He probably should have just moved or moved dodge, as he quickly realizes his initial plan to roll out the Zeta suddenly isn't going to work. So what we do is we activate the Epsilon HMG instead, able to whole order jump down to here, outside of line of sight of the Kamau sniper, and in a couple orders we're able to come around to get a beat on him. Initially my opponent thinks to take the fight from here, but we got a measurement from the sniper to the Moonraker before, so we knew that it was likely going to be outside of his good range with the heavy machine gun. So he takes his time, comes down, swings, and then shoots. Unfortunately, I crit him and put him to unconscious. So my opponent activates the robot and makes his way down, tries to shoot a medkit, hits, but then the HMG goes fully dead. Potentially it would have been a better idea just to call down that speedball to guarantee the res, because if you got a second chance of shooting, I think you'd be pretty happy with it. But that's the risk you take with paramedics. The robot dealt with the Oko, then continues moving around. The robot ends up in a position up here, and the Oko ends up behind that building, chilling out over there. So the Zeta is able to swing out and come around and get a line on the Kamau sniper. Gets a line on my HRL and puts it to unconscious, and then blows away the Kamau sniper. After that is able to just happily retreat behind here, and this Varangian is able to move up and just get some cover behind here. So my opponent's second turn, it's a decent strike back. He's gotten rid of 2 of my major guns. The only real gun I've got left is the Squallow, but it's a hell of a gun. The fear really is, though, he hasn't been able to complete any objectives, and I've still got all these boxes here. So my turn. I'm not really being watched by much. So my knight is able to whole order jump up here, rock up, and paramedic the Kamau HRL back up. So we're pretty happy with that. Then the Zulu Cobra Killer Hacker is just able to stand up, put a picture down on the other side of this building, sit back down, and we're able to put down a pretty handy Oblivion just on the Zeta. And we also, with our knights, we sort of hop back down. His HVT is somewhere in this corner. We're able to pick up our HVT follow-up from one of our knights, and now our knights have a better look down over here. Aside from that, it's a lot of just spending the orders to put the boxes down in the zone. I'm aware I could have probably just sat them there and let them die with it if something did end up happening, but I was really keen to just get them there so I could put the knights in better positions. Group 2, I get a very nice grenade launch from the Squallow, who's able to blow up a Flashbot and a Cyber Ghost down over here. And blowing up that Cyber Ghost means he doesn't have a regular hacker anymore, and it also knocks out his white noise, which is really important. The rest of that order pool is just getting this second sensor bot down to deposit his box, and it's over to my opponent. So really, I don't do an incredible amount. I'm just securing points and, doing small, safe stuff. So I'm pretty happy about that. Now, my opponent's turn, he's able to push up his Varangian, and it goes on a big run down this way. Of course, the Zeta hops out, puts down my Kamau HRL, and that's okay. The Varangian tries to come and have a fight with one of my knights. I'm throwing 3 boarding shotguns at him. He's submachine gunning back and then dropping chain rifles back. He ends up getting a wound on my knight, which is pretty unlucky, and manages to tank a couple hits. He decides to shrink back and ends up over here, but does end up getting a wound on my poor knight. And importantly also, blowing up the repeater, blocking off the Zeta. So my opponent's then able to move down and just engineer the Zeta. The Zeta is able to retreat to a safe spot, but really that's the majority of his turn. So it goes over to me, and I'm able to activate the Squallow. I'm able to push up, kill the Varangian, push up, hit the multi-pistols on the other Varangian. I'm able to peek the corner, shoot off his engineer who'd come down to help the Zeta. I'm able to shoot off the sensor bot who was chilling out behind here with the good friend Roadbot. I take a couple shooting fights with the Zeta. I'm able to put a wound on it and sort of fall back. I end up staying standing as that order pool runs out. I spend the rest of my Group 1 order pool just hacking the Zeta. I also try to get a hack down on the Roadbot, but that doesn't quite go through. And it flips over to my opponent. My opponent is not in loss because of his Ment Engine, but realistically he can't really do much. He tries to activate the Roadbot, who stands up looking at my 2 knights. It ends up getting blitzened, and we call the game there. So that game goes 10-zip my way. I'm able to get my classified, and I've got all the boxes. And unfortunately, my opponent just couldn't quite make it work. Really nice guy and a very enjoyable game. And I walk over to my next round. Now, this one was Area of Interest against Maddie. He's a New South Wales player. Hayden was from Canberra. And he's playing his vanilla JSA. I've played Maddie before at Border Bash, and he's a very strong opponent with some very cool lists. Again, this is an approximate recreation of the lists, as I wasn't able to get him. So we've got a Contempi Chain of Command. We've got a Damaru and a Tenko in a duo. A second Damaru just loose. We've got the Hatamoto Lieutenant +1 order with Spitfire. A duo of a Karakuri emitter chain rifle Panzerfaust, and a Karakuri multi-rifle chain rifle Panzerfaust. We've got a Flashbot to get us some orders, a Ninja Killer Hacker, and then Group 2, we've got an Engineer with Helper Bots, another Tanko, a Kuriarmi Ninja Hacker, 2 Baggage Bots, and a Satya. So this is really a pile of wounds and medium-range guns with really effective vision control from those Tanko. Just being able to run out with your Impetuous, shoot 2 Disco Ballers, and there's not much your opponent can do about that. The hacking game, it's also really nice. You're in a very hackable sectorial or faction and playing a very hackable game plan. So having all those hackers off the table really insulates you and can set you up for some good turns later down the line after you've been able to weather those hacking attempts, fix them up with engineers, and then strike back with the hacking you have. Also, a very nice, strong defensive backbone in those Karakuri. 3 wounds each, total immune. You really, really just need to chew on those pieces. So, let's hit the table. So, the mission here is areas of interest. We've got the 2 green areas as the regular areas, and then the red area as the special zone. So, I win the LT and elect to go first, and I also pick up Industrial Espionage as my classified. So here we can see I've got the Squallow and the Pathfinder bot in a duo, just chilling out behind this building. I've got a Helot who plans to crawl up and just watch the console in the center. The Zulu Cobra. I want to get the Zulu Cobra over to this zone over here. My deployment zone sort of stops at these 2 buildings here, but with the 4 deployment +4, I just want to make sure she's somewhere safe behind a barrier, even if it means I have to spend a few more orders getting her down and around over here. Yeah, I think it was sort of wedged in this. It was very much wedged in this little zone over here. Then we've got the Link team over here, just ready to watch anyone who comes around this direction to try and get to the zone. Our Kamau sniper is doing a bit of double duty there, watching this line here and then this line out that way, and also a line back past here, where to get to this little zone, you sort of have to go all the way around and then come down. We've got our Fusilier Hacker crouching down behind here, and then my opponent has his Ninja Killer Hacker in hidden deployment on this rooftop. His Hatamoto Guard is hiding in this little nook. Then we've got 2 Tanko, both in duo. We've got 1 Tanko over here in a duo with a Damaru. We've got a Tanko and a Damaru loose over here. We've got our 2 Karakuri set up, and there's a little bot behind them. So it goes to my turn. I'm sort of looking at the easy and hard things to do. And the hard thing really is that I don't want to deal with these Karakuri. One wrong move, I just get bricked from the emitter. So, especially as there's a little a helper bot up there. So what I start doing, I just start flinging grenades with the Squallow, and I spend about 4 orders doing so. We end up being able to put the sensor bot to unconscious and do about a wound to each Karakuri. Now, in the process of doing that, my opponent's Karakuris dodge closer together, and I'm able to move up with this link team, get the HRL out to here, draw a line on just one of the Karakuris, and fire. And through the template, I'm able to catch and deal a wound to one of them. Actually, no, I think they both take a wound. I fling a final grenade from the Squallow. It goes down and finishes off one of the Karakuri, putting it to unconscious. The little bot is still unconscious as well. And that just leaves one Karakuri left on the building who decided to go prone after getting hit by the missile launcher. So that all happens in my first turn. Also, my little bot, with the spare orders from the Squallow team, is able to move up, hit the console, and then just sort of pull back behind here. I'm able to maneuver my Zulu Cobra into my zone and discover myself, and the rest of the team is able to just scuttle around. The Knights are able to scuttle around and chill in my zone. So that's the end of my first turn, and it goes to my opponent. The first thing he does is go impetuous with his Tenko. He's able to run out over here and just fling 2 disco ballers over here. I'm able to just HRL him in return, and he burns to death. Now, this is the first thing, and this has happened in the last time I played with Maddie. He runs out his Tenko just in the line of fire and shoots those disco ballers. It is a very efficient way to do things, but I do worry that it's not a great use of resources. I think he takes a wound and then just keeps trucking over to here. This Tenko then... Oh no, this is the one who dies. Then this Tenko rolls out, flings disco ballers, he takes a wound and ends up over here. Then the Hatamoto activates, is able to push up, just sort of ends up over here. The Karyami Ninja had his big turn. He reveals from his deployment, moves up, and then under disco baller cover is able to slowly move, getting hacks on the Squallow while avoiding the Fusilier hacker. Ends up super jumping down in this direction, and is pretty happy doing that. The Damaru then pushes all the way up, dodges out, and berserks. My Kamau sniper, he's more on these stairs, and he's able to berserk the Kamau sniper, who's locking down a number of lines for him, seeing through his mim, and ends there having taken a wound from a multi-pistol shot of the Squallow on the way in. My opponent then reveals a Yamabushi who comes through here in this little pot with my Hellet and the sensor bot, is able to kill the sensor bot to get a more free reign of movement over here, but then get sprayed down by the Hellet. So end of the first round, I'm able to pick up 2 points, and it's over to me. Maddie also, unfortunately, he calls down his speedballs, trying to get an auto repair up here with the Karakuri. Unfortunately, it lands back in his DZ. There's not much he can do about that. His second random speedball doesn't help him either. Lands back in his DZ, and yeah, very unfortunate. Now, I think Maddie was saying this was obviously disappointing because he wanted to get a Karakuri back up, but I think what he really would have been able to do is get that helper bot back up, and then have that helper bot just servicing those Karakuri, and that would have been really, really annoying. So it goes over to my turn. My Squallow, I believe, is my Squallow is isolated, so it activates, spends its attack aware, just shoots the Damaru with the multi-pistol, and it goes down, but in the process is carbonated by the Karyami Ninja. I activate this link team, and we start moving around and across, and unfortunately Maddie got a bit unlucky with his facing here. The Tenko was facing the wrong way, got HRL'd off. Then we continue down and around. these knights and the sensor bot also abandon their position. We get a free HRL on Big Man over here. He manages to tank the hit, turns around. We have a bit of a gunfight, but ultimately he goes down. So he's very lucky he brought that chain of command. Then our knights just sort of form up over here, taking some defensive spots. The bot comes up here on the roof with the HRL. But then we still have this big issue to deal with over here. And because the Zulu Cobra is capturing the zone over here, and I'm still concerned about hidden deployment specialists coming for this button, we don't want to abandon our post there, so we chill there. So what we try and do, we try to swing with the Squallow. We go back and forward, face-to-face it with the multi-pistols. We've got our attack word in our own order. We end up getting bricked off of that, and there's not an incredible amount we can do. I then activate the Fusilier Hacker. I try to wiggle up, stand up, and take some shots, and he's just able to kill the Karayumi with his combi rifle and sit back down. The rest of the Group 1 order pool is just spent moving up the Machinist to repair the Squallow, and we're back online. So it's over to my opponent's turn. He activates his Contempi and some flash spots over here, and just runs into his special area. The Ninja comes down, tries to fight the Knights, gets a bit unlucky, and just gets shotgunned and stabbed to death, and he goes down. But in the process, my beautiful HRL also gets stunned. There's a couple of other runs on this Link team from Asacha as well, but ultimately it comes back to my turn, and I'm just able to move up the Squallow into the special area and call it a day there. My industrial espionage, I'm just able to run a knight over here to one of the corpses of the Tenko and do that. My opponent did stand up his Karakuri, but as the Squallow was on its big adventure, it was just able to spray its last wind off. So this was a very effective game on my end. I think my opponent just got a bit unlucky with his facing, but his play with the Kurigami Ninja was absolutely excellent. He really held down the Squallow for 2.5 turns with just that one unit, so that was quite impressive. I don't know if my opponent... I think my opponent might have thrown away some of his resources a bit early. The Yamabushi sort of going down turn 1 over here. Then you had the Tankos just running into arrows on their Impetuous. There's maybe a better way to do that, but I'm not the vanilla JSA player. I don't know an incredible amount about them, but it was a great game. So round 3 was crossing lines against Ivory, and this was the game I was dreading this weekend. It was the Varuna mirror match. Me and Ivory had sort of been talking a lot on and off in the lead up to the event, and we'd sort of both evolved into crabs in the sense that we'd come up with very similar lists and similar things that were working for us. But instead of the second Link team, Ivory sort of went for the cutter instead. So here's the list. You'll notice something very similar. The Kamau HRL, the Pathfinder drone bot, and the 2 Knights of Montesa, a Link team we're both using. The Machinist, a Zulu Cobra Killer Hacker, Mule Bot, and 2 Helots. Then Group 2, we've got the Cutter Lieutenant, a Fusilier Hacker, a Fusilier Forward Observer, the Tech B, the Fugazi, and the Sacha. So really we've got very similar lists, the difference being he's got the apex of gun in Infinity, and a really nice number of tools. I was very impressed with what Ivory could fit in this list, while still fitting in the cutter. My concern with the cutter was, and it's always the concern, that you're not going to be able to get enough actual juice in the list after the cutter, but I think this list shows you can actually get that really quite well. It's a very hard list to attack into. You've got the cutter, of course, but the Montesas and the Helots are also there, just as classic stopgaps, and you've got lots of specialists in the list as well. So, let's hit the table. Now, this was the only mission where I ended up using my second list, as it was really geared towards this scenario. So I win the LT roll and opt to go second. I really don't think I've got a good chance at attacking into this Varuna list, so I decided I'm going to go second and just try my best to play for points. So Ivory takes it away. He starts moving up his cutter over about here-ish. He's able to blow away a few orders. He gets a line on a mule bot, blows it up, gets a line on my sniper and blows it up, which was a bit unfortunate. He then sort of kind of dawdles off and sort of finishes somewhere behind here after stripping a few orders. The Zulu Cobra then runs up over here, flings a pitcher down here and zaps my poor Fusilier hacker over there, which is a bit sad. And pieces of this Link team start moving up a bit, but there's not a huge amount that he ends up putting in his first zone. He's only got a Knight, and then he's got a Sensor Bot in there as well. So it goes over to me. I activate this Knight of Montesa, who we've got chilling in this corner, and go to Impetuous. But we've got a Helot looking here. So the first thing we do, we activate Richard Quinn. He pops out, goes back, and just flings 2 Disco Ballers in front of here. So the Disco Ballers go up, and unfortunately they're just a millimeter of bee's dick off from completely covering off this Helot, who's also in the trench from the Knight of Montesa. But that's no worry, I'd figure we can just tank the face-to-face. So I go to drive down this trench, and then unfortunately we measure. This trench is just a little bit, it's just a little bit bigger than the Montesa, which means I'd have to whole order jump down. Now this would be fine if the Disco Baller went off, but it didn't. So suddenly I'm very much pinned in. The other issue is motorcycles, they're allowed to jump. They can jump down or they can jump across, but they can't actually jump up. So if I was to go down this trench, I wouldn't be able to get out. The other sad thing is I'm too big to squeeze through this gap here. So even though I could feasibly jump from here to here, I wouldn't then be able to squeeze. So really just due to the table and deployment, I'm not able to use this Knight of Montesa, which is a really big shame. It's sort of the point of the list, and without it, I have to take some pretty drastic measures. The plan initially was to jump down here, press this button, and then come here and dominate the zone, where I think, yeah, my opponent had a very low amount of orders in there, and sure, my opponent could then swing it with the cutter, but I'd still have my order pool basically intact, and would be able to ride out the game from there. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, so I end up having to push with the Patsy team. The Patsy team's able to move up and shoot off this Helot with a double crit. Thanks, Pat. Sort of moves up through here, isn't able to push this button, and they sort of just end up formed up behind this large forested area. Then my lieutenant, he's able to push up over here, get a triangulated fire on his Zulu Cobra, which wasn't a great move. After that Zulu Cobra had shot out the pitcher, it really wasn't an incredible threat to me. I did fear that a pitcher would come down over here and lock down my big sort of Knights and Stuff team, because I didn't pack a Zulu Cobra killer hacker. And unfortunately, I do a miscount on my orders. Me and my opponent forget that I put the Knight of Montesa into Group 1 at the start of my turn. So even though I thought I had the orders and then sort of look at the pool, we count my turn out, my opponent goes, no, you don't have the order. But we'd forgotten that I moved the Knight of Montesa into Group 1, so my lieutenant's just left in the wind. So Ivory's turn then, very simple, is able to move around and spend the cutter's order pool, knocking off all my units there. That's the price of progress, trying to get a point. Then my opponent sort of swings one of their knights down this way to press this button. The other knight and the rest of the Link team come down this way and are able to blow off my lieutenant. So it's back to my turn, and really I can't do any critical amount. I'm down a lot of orders after Patsy went down to the cutter. But we do what we can. We maneuver this Link team into the midfield here, just to ensure that I've captured my zone. And then Group 2 can't really do anything, so we pass the turn. Ivory then continues to move up, gets a few shots down on Quinn and some bots, manages to clean up the bot, The cutter has a bit of a stomp around, ends up sort of over here, and continues to fire. We end up losing the Kamau. We end up going into our last turn, second last turn in loss of lieutenant with 1 Warhorse order, and we really don't get anything done. We're still able to claim our own zone as our own, and we pass back to Ivory. Ivory just continues to push. Nothing much really happens on his turn, other than him completing his link team's movement and blowing off Quinn. I'm then in loss of lieutenant. Well, not loss of lieutenant. I can't really do much in my last turn. My knight goes to get a press on the button, but gets blown up by the cutter on the way in. And then my knight just doesn't have anywhere to land because of the disco ballers not having the orders. So that's the end of the game. And Ivory takes it by a pretty decent margin. I'd managed to score, I think it would have been 3-7, because if I'd managed to press these buttons, it would have been a draw. So overall, a pretty sad game on my behalf, the Monty just not being able to do anything. What I really should have done is taken a good look at this table and gone with my other list. Again, that move of my lieutenant, pretty boneheaded. I really should have taken that other list and just focused on playing for points. I think my focus was good. I just didn't quite have the tools or the execution I needed due to the Montesa getting stuck there. But no, I think I still played it pretty well. Would have been nice to get the draw, but that's not what fate had in store. So that's the end of day. That's the end of day 1. So we go on to day 2. Round 4 is corporate appropriation versus Gwen, another player from New South Wales. So we have another approximate recreation special. This was a very cool Achilles soup list. So we had Achilles with the AP Spitfire and Pulsar as the lieutenant. We had a Harbinger forward observer, Pandora chain of command, Patrocles, and 2 Steeljaws. Then we had 2 Icadrons and Ardron. Then group 2, we had Chaucer with 2 forward observer Harbingers, a Sacha, and just a duo of Unidrons. So you've got a lot of link flexibility between Achilles, Pandora, Patrocles, the 2 Steeljaws, and the Harbinger, where you can sort of deploy and set up how you feel you need to deploy. They've got very strong offensive and defensive guns. Chaucer's a bit of a bugbear, especially for Varuna. And sorry, I've got the wrong profile there. It's just the FTO Feuerbach that was on the table. Pretty scary close assault. If the Steeljaws, Achilles, or Patrocles are able to sort of get their teeth into you, it's going to be a pretty bad time. And they've also got a ton of deployables. Lots of wild parrots and mines and happening. So, let's hit the table. So, I win the LT roll and end up going second, as I really want the last laugh in terms of getting the button. Or do I? I must go second. Or maybe do I go first? Actually, no, I think I go first. I think my slide's lying to you. My opponent sort of deploys Chaucer with the link team looking down this lane here. Pandora has the 2 Steeljaws over here, one to flash out this area and the other to flash out over here. Patroclus is deployed as a Gearhead Cyberplug, just in Hollow Mask, which I thought was absolutely genius. I was moving my first turn all over the place, asking Gwen, any AROs? Any AROs? Just constantly scared of something popping out on me. Achilles deploys sort of in this back corner over here. And then we've got the 2 Unidrons just in the pure duo, just flashing down and looking with their plasma down this line here. So I have my first turn. And it's a lot of faffing around, basically. The Kamau HRL comes here, tries to fight both of these Unidrons. Even though they're at neg 6 and neg 9 most of the time, it still just takes a ton of time. They're both dogged. They both, get a little bit lucky, but it's a really good idea just to have these 2 dogged arrow pieces. Eventually, we clean them up, and the sensor bot's able to take our beacon and run back to our DZ, and then our knights are able to sort of set up around here, ready for Achilles to make a run if he decides to do so. The Squallow has a very boring turn. It comes up, spends a lot of time fighting Chooser, ends up taking a wound, killing Chooser, and then coming back home, and it's over to my opponent. Now, my opponent's beacon she needs to grab, is in a very, very nice position. I really don't have a ton of lines on it. So Achilles sort of activates, takes a look down here, decides it's maybe not the best place for him, moves over here, picks up Patroclus and forms a duo, and then him and Pat start walking down this direction. Patroclus is able to make a nice smoke corridor over here. Achilles is able to move up, cautious move, get into a fight with the Kamau MSV, and blow it off the table. Grab the beacon, and then run back, ending behind these barriers over here. Big man Patroclus then sort of comes back, and is able to chill inside this building with Pandora. So, I'm feeling very safe with my sensor bot. There's nothing really left on this flank, and we're sort of opposites to each other in this direction. So the Squallow activates first, and we send the sensor bot and the Squallow to go pick up a decharge. Then the sensor bot runs over here, dodges around, and just suicides itself into the MacGuffin, blows up and takes but takes 2 wounds off the prototype. The Knights and the Kamau then also go. One of the Knights picks up something fun. They all move up. And then my opponent's Satcha, who's chilling sort of behind here, is able to dodge out and lands an EM grenade on the team here. We try and send some spec fires, but Gwen rolled +4 armor on that Satcha, and we don't really end up being able to do anything about that, so we pass to our opponent there. Achilles goes, pulls back, is able to deposit the box with an R drone over here, starts coming out, and then sort of gets locked in different gunfights with the HRL and the Kamau. And there's a lot of sustained gunfighting happening. Eventually moves up, gets hit by the Kamau light rocket launcher, and unfortunately burns to death, which is very, very unlucky. There were a couple points earlier where the Kamau HRL was getting free shots through the smoke. Achilles was able to dodge that, but just after a lot of sustained face-to-face fighting, the little helot gets very, very lucky and burns him to death. So it sort of goes back to my turn, and I can't really get a run on on the console back here. On my last turn, I can try and swing and blow it up. Patroclus also, unfortunately, ended a bit out of position as he was traveling with Achilles, where the Squallow is able to move up and kill Patroclus. Then from there, the Zulu Cobra is able to move, fling a pitcher, move this way. The Squallow throws a couple grenades at Pandora just to try and soften her up, but I get lucky with a crit nade, and she goes down without me needing to use the Trinity. So that was very, very lucky on my part. I would have had to spend a lot more of that order pool putting Pandora down, and we're able to use those orders to attempt a couple classifieds. I don't win any of my whip rolls, and it's back to my opponent, who is unfortunately in loss of lieutenant, can't really do much, and we both get our points for holding on to the boxes. I picked up 1 classified, and I'm securing the HVT, and I've got more from the Panoplies, so I win the 4th round. Really good game. I was really impressed by the link flexibility, and if Achilles just had the chance to push further, I think I would have been in a lot of trouble, but I was able to hold the line. I had a lot of crisscrossing AROs, and I think overall, Next Wave's lack of vision control really showed off in this game. My opponent was really just locked to using smoke, which wasn't the perfect answer and gave me a lot of free shots into Achilles and Patroclus. It didn't end up happening that any of those landed, but still just a risk you'll have to take sometimes playing Next Wave. So round 5 was Hardlock against Jacob from Loss of Lieutenant, playing his Seraph list. So group 1, we've got the Seraph AP Spitfire with the friend bot, backed up by a Tech B. Then we've got a link of a Knight Commander, Brother Khan, a Crozier, and a Blackfriar heavy rocket launcher as a nice little 4-man team. We've got our Flashbots, Mulebot Evo Hacker, supporting that Bulleteer, can also put some Fairy Dust up, which is nice. Warcore, and then Group 2, we've got a Bulleteer and Motorized Knight of Montesa, a Trin Killer Hacker, a Curator with a Palbot, a TR bot, and the second Mulebot. So this is really just focused around the Seraph. Even if you strip the Seraph, it's still got like up to 10 orders, which is nuts. The Vision Control is really nice to back up the big run. It's got some fast specialists in the Motorized Knight, and the Seraph's little bot just being able to super jump around. Really, really cool. And strong secondary guns that can solve what the Seraph can't. You've got the Blackfriar there for strong mimetism, or the Mim6 Bulleteer with marksmanship is probably the best odds you can get in faction. So a really nice design in terms of the list. So we have a bit of an unorthodox setup for this battle report, as I completely forgot to get a photo of the table before I packed it up. So Jacob wins the LT roll, and I decide to hard second him. So I set up, I've got my Squallow and my little Palbot behind this building. They're backed up by a sniper over here watching this long line, and a machinist. Then we've got a Helot up on this roof. We've got a Helot sort of in this little gate area, watching this area here, and then watching out to here. We've got our Happy Knights with Blitzens watching a very long line down this direction, as well as a sensor bot. My opponent sets up, he's got the Seraph sort of off screen, very far in this back direction, where there's an alleyway going down this direction. Then we've got the core set up on this building over here, and a Trinitarian hiding just behind this wall. So Jacob takes it away, and he has to spend a lot of movement jumping around with the Seraph, sort of getting to this area here. He's able to kill off my sniper. He's able to kill off a Mulebot who's chilling behind here. He's also able to kill off this Helot, which is a bit sad, but he sort of realizes he has to stop his run there. He walks kind of back behind here, and on the way he poops out his little friend and is able to press this button, which is quite nice. My opponent then activates his Trinitarian, pulls it out here, is able to Trinity off my regular hacker behind there, push this button, and then end up just in camo behind there. So a pretty good turn from Jacob. Jacob also manages to kill off my little sensor bot back here, which is quite a shame. Now it's my turn to activate, and I activate my Zulu Cobra killer hacker, shoots 2 pitchers down into this area. Unfortunately, both miss. Now, I activate my machinist next, and I go to shoot the Mulebot just behind the Zulu Cobra. This was a mistake. What I should have done is I should have shot that Gizmo Kit instead over to my sensor bot, so the sensor bot would be able to activate sensor to get this thing out of camo, and then my Zulu could have hacked it off, but we didn't quite have the presence of mind for that. We just pick up this Mulebot to try and get some orders for next turn. We call down a Speedball. This Helot goes downstairs. Vita packs my regular hacker. We also get another Vita pack over here, where the sensor bot moves around and is able to give a kiss to the downed sniper. The Squallow moves up. We manage to get a Carbonite down on the Squallow. We pop up, have a round of shooting. Nothing really happens, just because it's not a multi-HMG. And we sort of go and run home from there. So it goes to my opponent's next turn. Oh yeah, we end up getting a repeater down just by flinging the sensor bot up there. My opponent activates again. He's just able to move back. It takes him a while just because of the arrows around. Moves around, rinse, repeats, blows off my regular hacker. My opponent's then able to get a fix down on the Seraph and activate it again. But even still, the Seraph sort of moves up, can't really do what it quite wants to, keeps moving around, shifts up, sort of has a prolonged fight with one of the Knights and ends up killing him, but then sort of has to end up stopping here. Also blows off our little sensor bot on the way, which is quite sad. My opponent also starts moving up with this link team. We sort of get the Black Friar ending up over here, and Brother Khan moving in this direction. So, a fine turn from my opponent. He's still very much in the lead. So it goes to my second turn, and I just can't really do an incredible amount. It's a lot of faffing around. We don't really get much done. I think we managed to, we sort of reestablish our defensive position and just get ready to launch next turn. We move up the Squalor over here. We take 4 rounds of shooting with the Black Friar, but just nothing's able to happen. So we just finish up here behind the console. We've also pooped out our little friend. He tries to press the button and ends up getting it. So we flip this back to a Varuna colored objective. So my opponent's final turn, he just ends up pulling back. He's able to shoot off this helmet and establish a very strong defensive position. Brother Khan rocks up, claims this button for the military orders, and then the Seraph with its limited orders. I try and do a big run here with this knight. He dodges out. The Seraph is facing away in my turn. Shoot 2 Blitzens, 1 hits, but just nothing happens, which was, a bit sad. So we've also managed to pick up our second sensor bot over here. So we're really planning to get these two to try and launch into these 2 buttons here. So opponent has his final turn. He sort of pulls back with his resources, gets Brother Khan up to press the button. The Seraph comes around and enters CC with the Squalor, puts a wound on it, and it's back to my turn. I activate the Squalor. We try to CC the Seraph with our little friend bot. We get a wound on it. It already had a wound previous. That's 2 wounds. Our opponent then swings. I swing again. Apollo swings back. Seraph swings back, kills the Squalor, which is fine, all according to plan. Our Lieutenant Fusilier is then able to come out, get the Seraph out of cover and in good range while I'm in cover, fires some 15s at him, and the Seraph goes down. The Machinist can then come around, pick the Squalor back up, who then peeks out, has 2 more rounds of fighting with the Black Friar, but unfortunately, nothing happens. So we just have to go for it. I activate my knight over here. He runs out. I activate the bot over here, who runs out, and we're splitting them to try and put maximum pressure on these consoles. My opponent chooses to shoot the knight with both of his units, and we just declare another walk. We need this other walk to make it there. So we move up. The sensor bot makes it there unmolested. Our knight takes a wound. We've got 1 order left. We just activate the bot, move it to here, go for the press. If I win this die roll, I win the game. Unfortunately, it doesn't go through. That's my last order, and that's the game. So I'm very happy with how I played in this round. A hard second is never an easy thing to do, especially with a Seraph. But, just the amount of damage Jake was able to do to me with the Seraph really shows in this last turn. If I was able to play better or position better or use my resources better, I would have had the second order available to have a crack with this knight going into this button. But I just had the 1 order, I failed the 1 press, and there's not much I could do about that. So, those were the 5 games of CanCon. I ended up coming 17th out of 60 with a 3-2 record with, I think 3 majors, a major loss and a minor loss, which I'm pretty happy with. But what did we learn? So learning points in terms of the faction list, the Fusilier hacker was an absolute gun. He did exactly what I wanted him to do. He was just the one hacker. That meant my opponent couldn't walk through my repeaters. And if my opponent wanted to kill the Fusilier hacker, it was costing them a significant amount of resources to do so. Ivory's killer hacker, having to take 3 walks, a pitch, and then a trinity. 5 orders to kill my Fusi hacker, great. Same thing happening with Jacob, having to take, 3 or so walks and a trinity, fantastic. So, we discussed in the lead up how, and Rob's discussed this as well, you either need to be all in or all out, but I think there is something to be said for just having that pinky toe in. just to make your opponent have to work for the domination of the info war game, because otherwise you just sort of hand it to him, and that's that. The linked tech aware bot's extremely, extremely strong. It's something I would be looking out for whenever I enter a faction, or if I'm looking to enter a faction. Check if they can link their tech aware bots, and if they can, just try and go wild with that. The Montesa Knights, they really supported each other well. There were moments over the games where they would be picking each other up. So taking two of them, it didn't feel like overkill. It felt like really nice synergy. And I also really liked Patsy. I only used that list once, but I think she did a good job. I'd be keen to play more of her if I continue or circle back to Varuna. So, in terms of the game rules and the scenario, I think generally going first is quite strong this season. Aside from, of course, Hardlock, where I talked to most people who lost their lieutenant role, and most of them chose the hard second. It's just that swingy. And you can see even there in my last round, I was maybe one order off from winning that on a hard second. It's very, very, very second player favored. I'd also, don't shy away from picking your list based on the table. This is something I really haven't got much experience with. I understand it's a pretty common experience for Haq Islam and Ariadna, who really need to play the table. But for me, I should have been paying more attention to that table round 3 to make sure I could actually get use out of that Knight of Montesa. But it's something I've never done before. It's something I'm not comfortable doing. So I think that's a definite growth point I can focus on before the next event. And I also want to talk about myself as well. And I had 2 personal goals. The first one was to make it 3-2 in the event. I considered that sort of my floor for my performance. And I'm happy to have met that floor and not go home ashamed in defeat. And the second one is I didn't want to panic. If you've been sort of a longer viewer of the channel and paid attention to some of my battle reports, you'll notice that sort of at the end of it and during those matches, the ones I lose, I tended to have lost because of decisions made in a panic state. Infinity is a game that I'm very invested in, and it's been an interesting experience starting this YouTube channel where Infinity has begun to matter more to me, and even my image as someone who is good at Infinity has mattered more to me. I'm not a channel that aims myself at new players. I aim myself at intermediate to advanced, so I feel a bit of pressure on myself going to these events and then reporting on these events as someone who's trying to cater to that next step in people's, I guess, an Infinity journey and growing their skills. And there's a pressure on myself where if I can't perform myself, how can I help other people perform, or how can people trust what I have to say? So it's been an interesting experience having Infinity become more of my ego in a sense, but then also trying to stay calmer. It's not just, am I going to win or lose this game, which, doesn't have any real stakes to it. It's sort of, how is this going to affect my reputation? How is this going to affect my channel? Which is something that's been a bit difficult for me to grapple with. But in this tournament, I was able to not panic, which is really good. If you go back to my Border Bash video, one of my goals was to try and work on the mental game with Infinity and try to avoid making panic decisions. And I don't think I made a panic decision, even though things were bad for me at a couple points. I think my decision-making was sound, and personally, I was able to stay calm. So the first thing that really helped me here was the mindset and the awareness. I was able to catch myself in moments where I felt that I would panic, where things were going badly when the heart rate starts to rise, and I was able just to give myself 3 seconds just to chill out a little bit before making a decision. It doesn't sound like much, but just knowing how to pause, being able to recognize I'm about to panic, and actually take time to analyze my decisions. I'm also what I'd consider myself a relatively quick player. The round time was only 2 hours. A lot of people weren't getting their full games in. I was able to get my full game in each round. I'm a quick player, which means, again, that kind of feeds into the panic. I'm used to playing quick. I panic. I just play quick. That's fine. And then I make a fuck up. But I was able to, recognize when I was going to panic, take those 3 seconds, reassess, and I didn't feel like I made any moves driven by panic, which is very different to my previous experience. The second one is gum. This is a bit of a funny one. Your brain calms down when it's eating. Eating is one of my toxic coping habits, but I was able to utilize that and bring it to game day. I took a pack of gum with me, and all of my opponents would have noticed that I was chewing on gum through my matches, and this was really to keep me calm. When you're eating, your brain doesn't really let you panic or feel as anxious as you usually would. So by doing that eating, I was able to induce a physiological response to keep myself calm, and that was a big part of it too. I'm not going to put it all on the mental game. I think my gum was like 60% of my calm. So, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I put a ton of work into it, even just getting all the maps set up with the PNGs. So I really appreciate you guys who've stuck through and watched all the way. We're going to be kicking things back off in Infinity the Dante Land for the year. We've got some new videos coming up shortly, and I hope I catch you there as well. Bye-bye.